Hi, Grecia. Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Mariana. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Paulina.
Mm, Hi, good afternoon, Katia.
Hi.
Hi, Ana Sofia.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, let's see who's here. Grecia, Katia. Okay. Just waiting for some people to arrive. Hi, Fatima. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Okay, so we're going to be working as we did yesterday. We're going to dedicate a couple of minutes to every ability. So yesterday we began with reading. So let's go to that part. Bye. Okay. So reading C1 or C2, C1, C2. Okay. Reading practice 2. Remember, so one of the things that we were talking about yesterday is that in this, especially in this type of exercises, whenever they ask you a question, the answer can be with different words. For example, if they ask you, I don't know, what do teenagers do when they go to school? Something like that. And in that reading, you're gonna say, what do adolescents or what activities adolescents do at class? Something like that. So they use different words, but they mean the same thing. So you need to analyze that part. So it says, again, find the exact paragraph in line in each answer. So first of all, we're going to read. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read it and complete it. Okay, we're going to do it like yesterday. I gave you like 5 minutes to read, and then we're going to check answers. Okay, so 5 minutes, and then we check. Okay, you can start. Hello, Norma. What we're doing is I gave you a couple of minutes to read these two paragraphs, and then we're going to check answers. This is part.
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So the first one, why did Elgar Welch go to the pizzeria?
Letter D.
Yes, letter D. Letter D. He had become concerned after reading an untrue news story. And it's in line 3, first paragraph. He had previously read an online news story about the restaurant being an assault rifle, and then the part that he read something in the news story. So notice that it says he had previously read an online news story. And in here, it just says untrue news story. So a couple of words are not included, but again, it talks about the same thing, even though we're using different words. Good. And in number 2, which letter is it?
C.
Letter C.
Letter C.
Mm.
Letter C. And yes, it's letter C. Paragraph 2, line 6. Answer C. They thought the newspapers had a political agenda. And it's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, many people thought that these papers were themselves lying for political ends. So political ends, it's a synonym for agenda, political agenda. So there's a synonym over there. Now, and the third one, who is Stephen Smith?
Letter D.
D.
Letter D, a fictitious person. And in fact, yes, letter D. And it's in line 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It claimed that the mainstream media were telling false, Representative Stephen Smith. And then he was telling falsehoods, things that are not true, which makes it a person that it's not real. And he was created to, okay, Carla. And he was a made up character in order to attack the media or talk or criticize another person or another organization. Good. Now, let's do this part. It's the second part of the same reading, and you're going to be answering questions 4, 5, and 6. Okay, again, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and we check. And you can start. Okay, so question number 4, which reason for the difficulty of controlling fake news stories is not given in the article?
B.
Exactly, letter B. I'm going to select it, letter B. And between the lines 1 and 7 from the third paragraph, which is this one, we can infer the answer. So it says fake news stories can be hard to control for several reasons. Many people mistrust established news sources and others just don't read them. So the debunking of a fake story by a serious newspaper or TV channel has limited effect. In addition, the internet is very hard to police when the users blah, blah, blah. So basically it says, it talks about what it says in letter A, B, and D, but it doesn't say anything about online media, checking stories, not checking stories before publishing them. So like it says, not given in the article. Good. And number 5, which type of motivation for the creation of fake news is not given? Again, not given.
A.
Yes, letter A. It's a way of making money from people who pay to read the stories. Yes. And we can see this in paragraph 4, starting from line 2 to line 11. So, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So basically the whole paragraph, except the first line, tells us about the answer B, C, and D, except A. So in here, what are we doing? From the abilities that we saw last class, remember, it was the reading strategies, such as in here, we are identifying the main idea, but in reverse. You know, instead of identifying the most important idea, we are identifying the idea that is not mentioned, that it's left out. Good. And number 6. Which letter is it? Sorry, number, yes, number 6.
A.
Letter A, you say, or letter A?
Yes, A.
A. Who else says A or another letter?
I think it's C.
Yes, it's C actually. Positive. And we can find that in line 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. This part, together we can turn around the post-truth world. Obviously, in here, it's not saying, yes, I feel positive about stopping fake news. That author is not saying that. But we can infer from what this line says that he or she, whoever the author is, leans towards the positive way, or the positive side of stopping fake news. So she or he feels positive about it. Okay, now, and yes, here were the answers. Letter C, line 8, and everything that you say. Okay, now, let's go to the next ability. And as you see, reading, it's basically this. It's gonna be a text, and they're gonna be asking you obviously questions about it. So that is what it's on. But always pay attention to the part where you can infer, like this, the part that says together we can turn around the post-truth world. That idea, again, doesn't say exactly that this person feels positive about what he or she says in the article, but we can infer that this person feels positive about this topic. Okay, now let's go to the next ability, which is writing. Okay, writing. So yesterday we saw the abilities and also questions about writing and the types of texts that you're going to be writing about, such as review, email, essay, report, and proposal. And we did that yesterday. So now let's move on to the next part, and this one. So here it says complete the following letter. A college which you attended in the past has written to you asking to what extent its facilities met the needs of the students academically and socially. Write a letter to the college answering these questions. Suggest areas where the college could improve facilities. Okay, so this is an example, okay? Imagine that you were the person that wrote this, okay? But instead of rewriting the whole text, you're going to complete the words. You're going to guess, try to figure out which words are here that are incomplete. So it's very important to know the context clearly, the context of what they're asking us to do and what the text is about. So in this part, again, you think it's imagine yourself in the situation and that you are writing a letter or that you wrote a letter to the college answering to the questions that they asked you. So again, if the facilities of your college that you attended met the needs of the students in regarding classes, the curricula, and socially, if they did mix-up activities like icebreaker activities, those type of things. So I'm explaining this in order for you to get into context and to have a better idea of what the words are here. So this is gonna be a little long, yes, a little long, this exercise. So for this, I'm gonna give you 10, 15 minutes, okay, 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, if you don't finish, no worry, I can give you a couple of minutes more. If you want to, you can do, well, I think it will be faster if you do it on computer, or if you want to do it written, it's fine. So you can start, and then we're going to read it and check the abilities and strategies that we used here. You can start, go ahead. ready or do I give you more time? More time or what? Sorry.
It's very hard to answer.
Yes.
I don't know if the blank gaps are one word or per letter. Some are short, the others one are big. So I only got some lines, but not the whole letter.
Yes, but don't worry. Obviously, this is not gonna be on the exam. Don't worry, you're not going to be doing that. This is just an exercise for getting evidently getting writing skills. Yes, I know it's pretty difficult even for me. I was trying to do it and I was like, which word can it be? But the thing is here is to identify the words besides what I mean, identifying the words that you're going to use here to identify the level of formality. Okay, so it's fine if you think it's difficult. I know it is, but when we get to the answers, what I mean, when we get to identify which word are we using here, I'm going to tell you more about the writing parts that you need to be working on. Okay, so it's fine if you didn't finish. Let's see. At least the first part, it's a little easier. It says thank, and then what do you think it says? Thank what?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give feedback about my education at Brightway College.
Yes, exactly. And
Firstly, I'd like to talk about, I don't know what.
okay, the teachers. Well, you started pretty well, and yes, notice that they're using a very polite language. Okay, so let's go through the answers. Okay, so here it is. So it says, well, you know what? You help me read so I don't. It's not just me talking. So I'm gonna go by order where I see you here in the part. Okay, Carla, I see you first. You're the first here. So please read until where it says grades, until here. This part. Ay, se me quitó. Wait, sorry. Until here.
Everything. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give feedback about my experiences at Brightway College. Firstly, I'd like to talk about the teachers who were excellent. They prepared us very well for examinations, and it's down to them that so many of us obtained the grades.
Notice that instead of saying got good grades, it says obtained. Pay attention to that. And it's part of your ability. Remember that we saw the first day that the level that you're at, you don't use everyday words. You use words that are more complex and more formal. Okay, so pay attention to those little words that you might know. Obviously, you know them, but you can change them in another level, a higher level. Don't stick to the words get, go, like the easy words, so to speak. Okay, good. Let's see who I have next in order. Ana Sofia, please, until where it says extensions.
Okay. We always have the opportunity to discuss our ideas in class, and the teachers never dismiss our ideas, no matter how strange they were. Having said that, the homework workload was very high. The teachers were very strict about handing it, and it rarely gave us extensions.
Another word that I identify here that we don't usually apply is like dismissed. Another word that we could say is that they never listened to our ideas, for example. No, instead of saying that, you can say dismissed. Sounds better, it's more complex, and it's more appropriate to what we're trying to say here. And conjunctions. Having said that, conjunctions, remember, are these words that connect ideas. There are many types that are for addition, for even for giving examples, for contrast, and for addition. So having said that, it's a conjunction that can fall into the category of addition. So having said that, now that I say this, I'm going to say something else regarding to what I previously said. Okay, very good. Let's see who I have next. Grecia, you're going to help me read starting from although, and you're going to stop where it says jobs, please.
Although I realize that homework is important, I do feel that I could have been given less homework and be less strict about deadlines, as this often prevent us from getting involved in sports and clubs and having evening jobs.
So again, I want you to notice the register that this person is using with about the letter. Remember that register I told you yesterday is the type of language, but not in vocabulary, as in, like I said, you are not going to talk the same way you talk to your best friend, to your boss or a colleague. Okay, so this is very formal, very, very informal, and writing, of course. And also notice that there are no contractions. Have you realized that? There are no contractions. So that is other thing about academic writing. They do not use contractions on academic writing. Be careful with that. I don't know, sometimes it depends on the test. In some tests, it's okay to use contractions, but in the real world, in real life, whenever if you ever get to write an article, especially scientific, do not use contractions. Okay, and please continue. Mariana, you're going to begin from furthermore until books, please. Here, books.
Furthermore, although the teaching was excellent, the facilities were not. The textbooks we used were very outdated. The library did not have enough desks, and there were not enough copies of important books.
Mm-hmm. Again, we have another contraction here, furthermore. Instead of saying besides or also, furthermore is formal, way more formal. Additionally, in addition, there are many, many conjunctions. Even right now, if you want to, you can go online and you will see there are a lot, thousands of conjunctions. So again, the function is not to use the same word over and over again, like additionally, 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 or besides. No, you can use different, right? Okay, Fatima, please help me start from there were until others.
There were also not enough computers for the whole class to use at the same time. Socially, there were a lot of sports and music clubs to join, but very few others.
Mm-hmm. Notice socially how you started, well, how this person started the sentence. Socially, it's like social wise, like talking about the social part, because remember one of the questions were to talk about, or well, how this person felt about the social part and the academic part. So notice how it began. Even I liked it, like socially, there were like social wise, no, the part of the social. Okay, and Norma, please help me with start with I would until disappointing, please.
I would have been interested in taking extracurricular classes in drama, woodwork, and cookery, but these classes were not available, which was disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Also, notice this structure. I would have been interested. They're using conditional, something else that you can use evidently in letters, right? In that case that they ask you to write a letter or write a personal review on something, you can use that language, like in first person. Because other thing what I mean is that in academic writing, like scientific articles, also in investigation, you do not use pronouns such as we think, we concluded, or I think, or I believe, no. So when you get to write academic texts in the exam, if they ask you to do so, never ever use pronouns unless it has to do with the topic. But if you talk about I think, we think, no. Instead of that, we use the passive voice. It was discovered, example, look, we discovered that the solution, I don't know, whatever, the solution of whatever. Instead of saying like this, it was discovered that the solution of blah, blah, blah. Okay, be careful with that. It's considered incorrect to use pronouns in academic writing, especially in scientific articles. Okay, and to finish, please, Selene, secondly, until the end of the paragraph, of the letter, please.
Secondly, the school organized very few outings except for the field geography and biology field trips. And I will have liked the opportunity to go on activity holidays with my classmates, such as ski trips or adventure sport weekends.
And also the word such as. This is used a lot in formal writing, also in speaking, of course, but I have noticed whenever I get to read scientific texts or articles, and they use such as. Also, they can use, for example, for instance. So remember, we can use this type of words, again, to not be redundant or repetitive. A synonym, for example, the most common one, of course, we always use it. And also, instead of that, we can use for instance, such as. So they're synonyms. Also, I suggest you to study synonyms of regular words so you don't use the same one over and over again. Good. Now, for today, we're going to stop in the writing part. Now, we will move on to the next ability, which is listening, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's use of English. And remember, this is like the shortest part along with speaking of the exam. Remember, it's just 15 minutes. The other ones are between 20 and 30 minutes, but yeah, the use of English and speaking are just 15 minutes. So you will notice that we're not going to do a lot of activities as the other abilities. So yesterday we did from 1 to 10. So we did, I never like corn. Let me count them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we're going to begin from here. Same thing we did yesterday. Remember, you were answering one by one, and then at the end, we're gonna check answers. Okay, so first of all, it says she gave you great. And what of the answers do you think it is?
Pieces of advice.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to be writing your answers. Okay, you say pieces of advice, which is letter B. Is there someone else who has another answer? No? Okay, I guess you agree then. So, okay, number 1, letter B. Good. Let's see. 2 and 3. Which of the following options is a synonym for rude?
A.
Letter A. And in 3, which of the following options is not a synonym for angry? Sorry, someone talked, but it got cut off. Which letter? A. Okay, letter A, inquisitive. Okay, then number 4. We've been ever since I got that new job. these are, it might be a little difficult because they are idiomatic expressions. It's part of what we saw yesterday. Idiomatic expressions, if you did the homework, I told you to look for the definitions of, it was called, phrasal verbs, idiomatic expressions, and the other one, simile. Remember, simile is when you compare two things that are similar. As quiet as a mouse, simile. Get off, phrasal verb. Idiomatic expression, an example is, it's raining cats and dogs. Raining cats and dogs means when it rains a lot, that it's flooding the whole city. Obviously, it's not literal. Cats and dogs are not going to fall from the sky. It's an expression that tells us, that transmits the message that it's raining heavily. So in this, yes, we are gonna think a little bit because again, it's an idiomatic expression. It's not gonna be literal. So we've been passing, which one?
Sailing like ships. in the night.
Sailing like ships.
A.
Okay, some say A and some say B. Okay, between A and B. Okay. Interesting, because yes, it can be any of them. Okay, let's move on to number 5.
A.
Okay, A. Okay, someone said A. Is there another person that has another answer? My sister and we, my sister and me, my sister and I. Okay, letter A then.
A.
And number 6. B. We had perfectly finished by the time dinner was announced. Okay, B. Okay, and then number 7. Select the sentence with which uses post modification correctly. Okay, I'm gonna give you a moment on that one. Okay, post modification correctly. Okay, does anyone have an idea? Which one can be? Or, okay, post modification, what does that mean? It means that the fact that comes after the most important word in the sentence. So, what can be A, B, or C? No idea. Okay. A. Okay. Letter A. Don't worry. Anyways, we're going to check the answers and then I'm going to explain why is that answer and not the others. Okay. And this will be number 8. Select the correct connotation that does, sorry, it's paused. I was pausing it. No, it's this one. Her response was, well, his was. Pathetic, agnostic, apathetic, fervent, fevered.
A.
I say C, A or C.
A or C, okay. I'm gonna leave A or C. And then we check, okay. Number 9. Select the correct connotation that the sentence alludes to, this one. During the height of summer, There is nothing more distressing than a busy tube, complete with crying baby and pretentious young professionals. If you are confused, just try to sort out one answer. In every exam, in especially multiple choice, every exam has the same format. 3 answers. One doesn't have anything to do, like it's 0, 0 has something to do with the question. The other one can be, and there's the correct question. So usually it's between 2, but if it's 4, I mean, it's the same thing. You have to sort out 2 and so on. But in this case, since we have 3, sort out 1 that you say, no, this is no, not. So it's between 2 answers, between 2 possible, A or C. Okay, A or C. Okay. And the last one, well, this will be number 10, not the last one, but number 10. A, okay. Letter A, number 10. Having just got back from his holidays, he was ready to face the year afresh. Okay, now we're going to check the answers. So let's see. When it's and okay, it's all the way here. Ah. Oh no, it was from yesterday, which is a cliff sentence. Okay, here it is. She gave you 2 great pieces of advice. Yes, you said letter B. And I skipped this one. Which of the following options uses a cleft sentence? It was in June when we got married. Cleft sentences are this type of sentences where it says the same thing, but they are linked in a way, as in here. It was in June we got married. So instead of it, the function of this type of sentence is to avoid doing this. In June. June is a month. June is a month. Month where we got married. To avoid saying too many words, to avoid using too many words, cleft sentences make them smaller. It was in June, we got married. Instead of saying June is the month where we got married, we can say it was June, we got married. So June, it's connecting the fact that it was and the fact that these people got married. So it's like connecting the 2 ideas. That's the use of a cleft sentence.
5 en punto.
Now, the second one, which of the following options synonym? Discourteous, yes, is the one that you said, letter A, discourteous. Then inquisitive, yes, inquisitive doesn't have anything to do with being angry. Another word for angry is furious and enraged, but inquisitive, no. Number 4, it's letter A, passing like ships in the night. So it's an idiomatic expression, it's not literal. And number 5, my sister and I. Not my sister and me. It's the subject pronoun, not the object pronoun. Remember, this is subject pronoun, like I said, and this is object pronoun. So since these are subjects, not objects, that is why we're using I, not me. It's I. This is wrong, this is correct. Because this, my sister and I, we are the subject of the sentence. We are not the object. So also be careful with that. Okay, then we have number 8. Mostly. So the person who said A, correct. We had mostly finished by the time dinner was announced. Yes, it's a little weird. It's another word as it's as if we say almost. We had almost finished, but mostly it's another way to say it. It's very formal, but it exists. It's more common to say almost. Okay, then number 9, it was letter A. Some people say, well, say A and C, it's letter A. Plus modification. The constituents, yes, that voted for Labor were not happy with the conservatory victory. So it's post modification. This is the subject. And the rest, it's an clause, the adverbial clause. That voted for Labor were not happy with the conservative victory. Okay, then her response was letter A. Yes, you chose that one, apathetic and fervent. Her response was apathetic, while his was fervent. Okay, and we're going to do, no, yes, we already did this one too. And is during the height of the summer, and the author does not recommend taking the tube during summer. And this is what we're going to do those tomorrow. Okay, now, so this is for the use of English. So let's move on to the listening part. Okay, listening part. Yesterday, we had the introduction of this topic, and we saw these reading strategies. So let's remember them. Predicting content is the example when you imagine you just turn on your TV. You see a man in a suit standing in front of a large map with the symbols of a sun, clouds, and thunder. What do you imagine he is about to tell you? This is key. Predict. It's the typical exercise whenever you are in an English class and let's say, we're going to talk about animals and we're going to watch a video. But, and I show you the title of the video, wild, Australian wildlife example. And I ask you, what do you think the video will be about? And then you tell me animals from Australia, kangaroos, kiwis, that type of bird, things like that. Okay, that is predicting content. And then imagine you are a superhero flying in the sky. From that height, it is possible to see that the entire area is like how densely populated it is and the kind of houses in each area. That is listening for gist. Gist is another word for the essence, like the core part of what we are talking about or listening to. So this is the key part. Entire area, what the entire area is. That is listening for gist. It's like to get the whole idea of the listening. Again, let's go back to the example of the Australian wildlife. If I play an audio about Australian wildlife, the gist will be what the definition of what can be Australian wildlife, the types of animals, the type of ecosystem they live in, all those things. that entails the topic, which is again Australian wildlife. The gist is the essence, the most important part of the text, or sorry, of the listening, of the audio. Now, if a university lecturer says, I am going to talk about 3 factors affecting global warming, then later on, you might hear the phrases, first of all, moving on to, in summary, to indicate the next part of that talk, detecting signposts. So these words, like it says, indicate the next part of the talk. These words such as first of all, in summary, subsequently, later on, after, etc., those are called signposts. In here, it helps us, these words, they give us like an idea. It's like it says, a sign that you're going to change the conversation to what it's next, so to speak. So those are signposts. These words are telling us what comes next. And number 4, imagine you are a detective taking a closer look at those buildings you saw earlier on as a superhero. This time, rather than taking in the big picture, you are looking for something specific and rejecting anything that does not match what's on your list. So this is the opposite of predicting content. And no, sorry about that. No, listening for gist, sorry, this one. It's gist, it's the general idea, and listening for details, it's like the name says, supporting ideas, the smallest part, the ideas that are obviously not general. So it's the opposite of listening for gist, that details, the specifics. Listen to a specific word, a specific phrase, a specific topic. That is listening for details. And and actually this is what does not match your list, rejecting anything that is sorting out things that don't have anything to do with what we are listening to or talking about. And the last one, imagine you're a tourist in a country whose language you do not speak. In a restaurant, you hand over a credit card to pay for the bill, but the server seems to say something apologetic in response. Even though you don't understand his words, you can probably conclude that the restaurant doesn't take credit cards and you need to pay with cash instead, inferring meaning. So again, this is not explicit, it's the opposite, it's implicit. They're not going to tell you exactly what it is, but by listening to the context, a couple of words taken here from there, you can guess the meaning. It's connected to predicting, but let's say it's like the after predicting, because predicting is like the first part. You need to figure out or get an idea of what it's going to be about the listening. And inferring is like you are in the area, in the context, and from different things, different signs, you get the idea of what they're talking about without saying exactly what the message is, as in this example. You don't know the language, but with the gestures, the signs that they use, you get the idea. Okay, now, we're going to do this listening. It says, is there life on Mars? Select the correct answer. So remember, one of the recommendations that we talked about yesterday is to first be familiarized with the questions and answers. After that, we listen and we answer. So it's better to first get to know what they're asking us to do, and then we listen. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a minute to read all the questions here and the answers while I look for the listening. Okay, so get familiarized with the words and questions and answers. Okay, give me a second. Is there life on Mars? I'm looking for it. I'm sorry, it's just that I can't find it. I had it open and I closed it by mistake. Sorry. But in a minute, one more minute. No, you know what? I can't find it where the page is telling me. I can find it, but we can do this other one. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play an audio. It's not the same one, sadly, but it's like a lecture. And instead of answering the questions, we're going to take notes. That is also an listening exercise. So let me play the audio and then I'll explain again. Okay. This is okay. This is, let me show you. Obviously, we're not going to listen to the whole hour of this. It's 1 hour 20. We're not going to listen to the 1 hour 20, but I'm going to play like 15 minutes. I'm going to play like 15 minutes and I want you to take notes on the important things, okay? Try to apply the strategies we saw. Listening for gist, infer meaning. We're going to start with predicting context, okay? So I'm going to show you that title. That title is Fundamental Issues in Linguistics. So what do you think the video will be about if the name is Fundamental Issues in Linguistics? Think of what can it talk about, and that is predicting. Okay, so let me share sound, optimize clip for video. Okay, so again, I'm gonna play just 15 minutes, not the whole hour, and then take notes. The important things that you consider they say in the video. Okay, go ahead and I'm going to play.
In these two talks, I'd like to talk about some foundational issues, in particular with the most important ones, I think, namely, what are the fundamental computational operations that enter into constructing syntactic objects, and why these and not other ones? It turns out there's quite a lot to say about that since the last time I talked here. Many problems, some solutions. I'll get to this in the course of the discussion as far as I can. But I think it would be useful to begin with a couple of comments on something more general, namely, what are we trying to achieve altogether in studying language? Many different ways of looking at it. These questions, I think, are in many ways more important than the particular technical results. They raise many questions about what is an authentic, genuine explanation, a genuine solution, and what is a maybe very valuable reorganization of data, posing of problems, often posing a solution, but not really achieving it. These things are worth thinking through, I think. The basic issues were formulated, I think, for the first time, quite perceptively at the outset of the scientific revolution in the 17th century. Galileo and his contemporaries, who were raising all sorts of questions about received wisdom, turned their attention to language as well. And they expressed their awe and amazement at the miraculous fact that with a couple of dozen sounds, it was somehow possible to express and to find ways to convey to others who have no access to our minds everything that's going on in our minds. So in their own words, which I rather like, I'll quote, they were awed by the method by which we are able to express our thoughts, the marvelous invention by which, using 25 or 30 sounds, we can create the infinite variety of expressions which, having nothing themselves in common with what is passing in our minds, nonetheless permit us to express all our secrets and allow us to understand what is not present to consciousness, in fact, everything we can conceive and the most diverse movements of our soul. Galileo himself regarded the alphabet as the most stupendous of human inventions because it had these amazing properties, and also because, as he put it, it allowed us to express all the wisdom of the ages, and it contained within it the answers to any questions that we might pose, kind of like a universal Turing machine in our terms. The Port Royal Grammar and Logic, actually, which I was just quoting, a paraphrase of Galileo, had many insights into logic and linguistics. It's in many ways the basis of modern logic. There was a rich tradition that developed exploring what was called rational and universal grammar. Rational because it was supposed to provide explanations. Universal because it was concerned with what was taken to be common to the common human possession of language. Was seeking explanations, including descriptions of even the vernacular, which was quite surprising at the time, innovative, but mainly explanations, and universal, trying to find what's common to all languages. This tradition went on for a couple of centuries, many contributions. The last representative of it, about a century ago, was Otto Jespersen. As he put it, his concern was how the elements of language come into existence in the mind of a speaker on the basis of finite experience, yielding a notion of structure that is definite enough to guide him in framing sentences of his own, crucially free expressions that are typically new to speaker and hearer, and also beyond that to find the great principles that underlie the grammars of all languages. Now, I think it's fair to you have to interpret that tradition is metaphoric, often vague, but I think it's fair to extricate from it the recognition that language is, the capacity for language, as well as individual languages, are possessions of individual persons. They're part of a person. They're shared. It was recognized throughout the species without significant variation, and recognized to be unique to humans in fundamental respects. That general program falls within the natural sciences, within what these days is called the biolinguistic program. Of course, it ran into many difficulties, conceptual difficulties, empirical difficulties. The evidence was pretty thin, and nobody really understood how to capture the notion, Jesperson's notion of structure in the mind. What is that? That enables us to develop, construct in our minds infinitely many expressions, and even to find a way to convey to others what's going on in our mind. That's what we call the Galilean challenge, which is still extant. Well, all of this was swept aside in the 20th century by structuralist, behaviorist currents, which very typically adopted a very different approach to language, taking the object of study not to be something internal to the person, but some outside thing. So maybe a corpus, an infinite set of utterances, some other external formulation. And you see this very clearly if you simply look at the definitions of language that were given through the early 20th century by the leading figures. So, for example, for de Saussure, a language is a kind of social contract. It's a collection, as he put, a collection of word images in the community of speakers. For Leonard Bloomfield, its language is the utterances that can be made in a particular speech community. For Harris, it's the distribution of morphemes in a set of sentences. For if you move to philosophy of language, say Van Quine, a language is, as he put it, I'm quoting, a fabric of sentences associated with one another and with stimuli by the mechanism of conditioned response. Elsewhere, an infinite set of sentences. David Lewis, language and languages, also took just languages. A language is some set of sentences, which is infinite. Both Quine and Lewis crucially argued that it makes sense to talk about an infinite set of sentences, but not of a particular way of generating them, which is a very strange notion if you think about it, because, and these are the leading logicians and philosophers, you can't talk about an infinite set in any coherent fashion unless you have some characterization of what's in it and what's not in it. Otherwise, you're not saying anything. But the behaviorist, the pressure of behaviorist beliefs was so powerful that the idea that there could be a privileged way of generating that infinite set was, as Quine put it, folly. Lewis put it, something unintelligible. But whatever any of these entities are, they're outside the individual. The tradition was completely forgotten. People like Jesperson, the last representative, were literally unknown. This good review of this by a historian of linguistics, Julia Falk, who runs through the way Jesperson was disappeared in the first half of the 20th century, and the whole tradition way back also. In fact, to this day, the even linguistics historical scholarship, which is pretty thin, it barely recognizes any of the things I've mentioned. Well, so returning to the forgotten tradition, by the mid-20th century, there were clear ways of capturing the concept, notion of structure in the mind, Jesperson's concept. Turing, other great mathematicians that established the tools for addressing the Galilean challenge, something you're all, I'm sure, familiar with. So Jesperson's notion of structure becomes the, what's now called the I language, the internal generative system, finite system that determines an infinite array of hierarchically structured expressions that express thoughts insofar as they can be expressed linguistically, and it can be externalized in sensory motor systems, typically, though we know, not necessarily sound. We can call this the basic property of language. Well, to meet the Galilean challenge, there are several tasks that have to be undertaken. The main one, of course, is to try to determine the internal languages, the I languages of speakers of typologically varied languages, a huge task. Then the question comes of how a speaker selects a particular expression from the internal I language. Then how the expression, once selected, is externalized, and the inverse, how the externalization is internalized by the hearer. The last two tasks are both input-output systems. We kind of grasp how to study those, and quite a lot has been learned about it over the years. The first of them, how the speaker selects a syntactic object out of the infinite array, that's a total mystery. There's nothing to say about it. That's true of voluntary behavior generally. So actually here at MIT, two of the leading specialists on the neuroscience of voluntary action, Emilio Bizzi, Robert Ajamian, about a year ago, wrote a kind of state-of-the-art article in which they discussed what they know about voluntary motion, simple, not language, simple things like lifting your finger, you know. And they said, well, they put it, as they said, fancifully, that we're beginning to learn about the puppet and the strings, but we can't say anything at all about the puppeteer. So how you select what you're going to do remains the kind of question that you can't even pose intelligibly in the sciences at this stage here as well. Well, the I language, keeping to the tradition, is a property of the individual, and also the species-specific faculty of language, also an internal property, something which allows the I language to be acquired. And it has to meet a couple of empirical conditions, two conditions which are kind of conflicting. The conditions of learnability and the conditions of evolvability. So whatever the faculty of language is, it's got to be rich enough so that possessing it, a child can acquire the I language from the scattered and limited data available, and it is scattered and limited, and it has to achieve the internal system which has all of these rich and complex consequences. So it has to be that rich, but it also has to be simple enough so that it could have evolved. And now we can be a little more specific about.
Okay, we're going to stop it here. So one of the things that they ask you to do on this type of tests sometimes is that they play an audio like I did. And then they ask you to take notes. You take notes. And it's connected to the writing part too, because based on your notes, you're going to make an essay about what you think of this topic, for example. Or other thing that they tell you to do is based on the notes that you took, then they ask you questions about the listening. In this case, the video that we saw, again, it's the fundamental issues in linguistics. Yes, it's very technical. And yes, this also, as we saw it yesterday, these are the types of lectures that we must find in the exam. Very technical, academic, about science, about math, even about, I remember I did a TOEFL test once, and one of the lectures, it was about math, and another one was about geology. So it's about anything. So it's good to listen to this type of lectures, even though it's not our area of expertise, but they help us to train our ear to at least get to know the basics of this specific issues. So that is about listening. So with the notes that you took, I suggest if there was a word that you weren't familiar to before, find the meaning. That is something that I also do whenever I get to do that TOEFL test. I train myself, like I get to watch videos and then I listen to them and I write words that I'm not familiar with them, and then I look for the meaning, and then I know more, obviously. Okay, the last part that we're going to be seeing today is the speaking part of the exam. So let's go to that part. Let me share the screen again. So, speaking. And we saw, I don't know, we didn't see that yesterday. What we saw yesterday is what it consists on. So it goes from to a quite familiar topic for us, such as family, work, even our personal information, and then goes to all the way to a conference. It can be a tech talk, again, can be a science one, like the one that we listen to, technology, any topic, literally any topic. And for the people that weren't here yesterday, the dynamics of the speaking part of the exam is that it's going to be in pairs and with two examiners. It's you with another candidate. And there's a part where, I know, first of all, I'm going to go to the first part. The first part is individual. The examiner is going to ask questions about you, from personal to professional, anything. And then the second part that they assess is that candidate's interaction, is that you are with another candidate and then you have a conversation with that. So what they assess is how you manage to talk to the person, how you speak, how much you speak, and one of the recommendations that we saw the first day, 2 days ago, was to not monopolize the conversation. So it has to be balanced. And the last part, it's a monologue. And this, they can tell you, in 3 minutes, I want you to talk about everything you know about science. Can be a general topic or a specific one about science or about the solar system. What do you know? Anything you know. And the point is to never stop talking. Speak, speak, speak. One of the recommendations. Doesn't matter if you make mistakes. If you make mistakes, continue. They also assess that. If you are quiet, if you freeze, no, that's obviously that's bad. So be careful with that. So this was it was for you to do on your own time, the word search, and these are the 7 things or 7 elements. Yes, Carla, you raise your hand.
Yeah, what if the information I'm saying is not true? I'm keep talking, but the information, for example, they asked me to talk about the solar system. And I start saying many things, but most of them are not correct, but I keep talking.
Yes.
An issue or not?
Not necessarily. It's connected to what I was going to say. What they assess is how well you speak. How well are your language skills regarding on how you express your ideas. It doesn't precisely need to be true, but usually they ask you questions about things that you know. Obviously, they're not going to ask you about, tell me about the history of math. No, they're gonna ask you something that you are most likely to know. So that won't be a problem because it's gonna be something that you are familiar with. that not so specific, such as science, like tell me everything you know about the history of, no. So, and well, that was answering your question. Now, what they assess, what they evaluate is these 7 things: production, how you construct, how you build, how you structure your sentences; accuracy, how well you speak, how precise you transmit your ideas; understanding, evidently, if you understand what the examiner is asking you. If they ask you, tell me everything you know about Spanish, about language Spanish, well, that's what you're going to answer. If you answer everything you know about Russian, obviously that's wrong. So that is understanding, that you comprehend what they're asking you to say or to speak about. Lexis, vocabulary. Remember, let's go back to the abilities or what you can do regarding your level. Your C1, C2. According to your level, your language skills, the vocabulary part is that you use complex language. You don't use the regular words as a basic student will, level, well, A1, A2 student would say. Instead of saying, I don't know, undergo, instead of saying another word, what was your undertake, for example. Look, one of the words that the lecturer used in the listening, well, the video, it was undertake. Undertake is a synonym of carry out, execute, produce, many other words. So you have to take into consideration that there are many ways to say one thing. So according to your level, you have to say the most complex synonym, for example. Okay, that's what it's Lexis. That vocabulary that you have to use has to be complex, not simple. Fluency, as the name says, you're fluent. If you're fluent, if you make pauses, if you hesitate, if you say that type of thing, they also assess. So make sure not to make those type of sounds, because that has to do with fluency. Interaction, the part where you are with another candidate, how well goes the interaction, if you let them speak, if you don't let them speak, if you don't let the other person say what it's on their mind, if you interrupt, that has to do with interaction. And awareness, be conscious of what you're saying, that what you're thinking, it's coherent to what you're saying, that you are conscious of what you're saying. They pay attention to everything. So that is what they assess in the speaking part. Now, and this was for yesterday. If you know the idiomatic expressions, colloquialisms, etc. That we saw that yesterday. Now, these are the results. I told you as homework or on your own time to answer those questions. If you answer them, yes or no, we're gonna find out. So please, Carla, help me with number 1, the yes and no part, please.
Should I read?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you know idiomatic expressions, colloquialism, adequate register, contextual, lexical, and grammatical cues, and formulaic expressions, you have social linguistic awareness. True?
Mm-hmm. And sorry, what?
Sorry.
No.
No.
Yeah, just to read. Now, the no part, please.
If you don't, you need to learn more expressions to interact socially effective to others.
Mm-hmm. And an A1, a student from A1, it's okay if they don't know this complex language, parts of speech, because idiomatic expressions are abstract. So an A1 student they don't have that ability to realize what they are saying, if they use them, how to use them, where to use them, etc. But we, well, C1, C2, yes, we must know this. And if we don't, well, evidently we have to see, to study and learn more expressions. And I told you yesterday that there are many topics of idiomatic expressions. There are idiomatic expressions for food, for music, for animals, for traveling, for learning, for language, anything you can imagine. So there are many. It's infinite. And if you know this, you have, like it says, social linguistic awareness. You can interact with people. Please, Ana Sofia, help me with number 2.
Yes, if you can relate your speaking contributions to the ones of others and handle a natural smooth of language, you show how interaction to others.
And the no part, please, too.
Okay, if you cannot, learn expressions to include the other in the conversation by asking follow-up questions or practicing active listening.
This is like it says, has to do with interaction. It's this type of words or phrases that invite the listener to participate into the conversation. Whenever we learn English in the textbooks, there's these topics about confirming information, tag questions. The tag questions, remember, are those that say, the movie was amazing. Amazing, wasn't it? That is an example of the tag questions. And this type of structures invite the listener to participate into the conversation, so that if you do that, if you know how to make the other person participate into the conversation, that means that you show high interaction to others, like we do in Spanish, obviously, like we do in Spanish, but in English too. And if you answered no, you have to learn expressions like tag questions and sentences for confirming, for agreeing, for asking for opinion, etc. Mariana, number 3, please.
Yes, if you can understand other people's speech, especially outside your field, and ask for clarification or additional information, you understand others. If you do not, you need to know more about other fields outside your expertise and ask more comprehension questions related to the others' topics.
This has to do a little bit with what I was telling you with the listening. The video that we saw, if you're not an English teacher or if you're not a linguist, you won't understand a lot of the expressions that this person said. But that's what I say. Train yourself, even though it's not your area of expertise, at least a couple of minutes of your day. Listen to a lecture of geology, for example, and write the words that you are not familiar with. And then little by little, you will expand your vocabulary on different areas, not just the one that you are expert in. Let's say that you are a scientist, a doctor of medicine, not doctor of PhD, but in medicine. But you have no idea about physics, okay? Listen to a lecture of physics and so on. And then you listen to music, but lectures of the theory of music, not songs, like theory and those type of things. So that's how you can, again, expand your vocabulary. But in case if you say no, if you said yes, then you have the ability to ask for someone to explain better, or like it says, for clarification or additional information on the topic that this person is talking about that you are not an expert in. Okay. Next, please, Fatima, number 5. No, number 4, please. Sorry, it's number 4.
If you know how to express your thoughts accurately, spontaneously, and consistently, you show fluency. If you do not, Practice speaking on your own for more than 1 minute and record yourself for listening afterwards and finding your blind spots.
And this is what I told you just a few seconds ago in the test. If you're like doing those type of noises, like, and you are showing that you are hesitating, that it's also, they're going to deduct points or things like that. But if you don't do that, that means that you're talking fluently, that you express your ideas without hesitating, without doubting, you just speak. And even though you are not expert on the topic, but if you transmit confidence, that person will show, you will show the person that you know what you're talking about, even though you don't know. It's all about confidence and fluency. And actually, I told you this yesterday, that an advice is to record yourself speaking in an audio or in a video, and then watch it and study yourself, like in a way, your mistakes, the structure, or if there is a word that you use a lot, maybe look for a synonym so you don't repeat that word over and over again. For me, for example, the word that I use a lot is basically and obviously. I always do that, and I'm trying to change it so I don't repeat that word over and over again. So by recording yourself, you can identify those words that you repeat a lot, or those structures that you have struggled with in the past, and you change them. Okay, who's next? Selene, please help me with number 5. Selene, are you there?
Yes. Which part? Sorry.
Number 5, please. This one.
Oh, yeah. If you use grammar adequately based on the situation, you show accuracy.
And the no part, please.
If you do not review the basic grammatical structures, if you don't know, review the basic grammatical structures.
Doesn't matter if you are an advanced student, if you are an intermediate level student, there's always a grammatical structure that we may have struggled with. I don't know, for example, me, when I was learning English, the grammatical structure that I always had trouble with, passive voice. It was a passive voice. Always. I don't know why it was very difficult for me to use it and to understand it, but I mean, I know now since I'm an English teacher, but in the past, it was difficult for me. Also, the past perfect, it was difficult for me. So what I did is, well, I had to study it since it's my job, of course. So that is what I did. I identified the structures, the grammatical structures that I was struggling with, and I studied them. But if that is not your case, then that means that you can use grammar appropriately, adequately, and you know when to apply that tense. Let's say if you're talking about the future, about an action that is going to be completed sometime in the future, you're going to use the future perfect. If you are talking about a situation that happened before another situation in the past perfect. So that is accuracy. Knowing exactly which structure, which tense to use in a determined situation. And number 6, please help me, Ana Paola.
Yes. If you have a good command of vocabulary so as to use the best formulations with the most appropriate style, you show a high lexical range. If you lack some vocabulary, read more, make your own glossary, and use synonyms that sound more advanced when speaking.
And also relates to what I have been telling you. The lexical range has to do with vocabulary. So, like I was saying, if there's a word that you are repeat over and over again, find the synonym. If there's a word that you don't know the meaning, well, look for the meaning. If there's a word that you are not sure the meaning, again, look for it. And the glossary is when it's what I told you. When you do a listening or listen to a lecture, write the words that you are not familiar with and have them in one notebook. And then you start with a word, another word, and so it becomes a dictionary, basically. That is something that can help you with vocabulary. Besides vocabulary, speaking, so it's related. Is speaking, vocabulary, written vocabulary, also reading can help you with that. So notice how all the skills somehow they're related to each other. So by doing one activity, such as the glossary, can help you with the other I forget the word, skills, and so on. So it can help you with all the skills. Okay, so that will be it for today. We finished just in time. So tomorrow we're going to continue the same thing, but other exercises. Okay, so I will see you tomorrow and have a nice evening and take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Yes,
you.
are you saying something?
Tomorrow at 5?
Yes, the same hour, exactly. From 5 to 7, yes. Okay, bye.
Bye.